Welcome back to Speducation. I am your host, Brandon Reed, and as always, if this is your first time to the channel, a special welcome to you. Well, it is a new week, and we do have a new lesson. So, what are we going to be learning about? Well, let's find out. Today's lesson, transitions. Now, I know that that is kind of a hot button topic or hot button issue because whenever anybody brings up transitions in schools, a lot of eyebrows get raised and they're like, okay, what are you talking about? All right. So, first off, I'm not talking about transitioning boys to girls and girls to boys. If you want to have that discussion, by all means, go ahead on some other channel. But when I'm talking about transition, I'm talking about the transition from child to adulthood. And in special education, there's a certain process that we have to go through. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Transition IEPs. The transition IEP is driven by the student's post-secondary goals. That is, what he or she would like to do after high school. The school is responsible for writing an IEP that demonstrates what the school will do in that IEP period to assist the student in working towards his or her chosen career path and or goals. Now, transition IEPs aren't much different than regular IEPs. The only difference is that once a student turns 14, we have to do what's called a transition. And that's where we ask them questions about what they like to do. What are some of their strengths? What are some of their weaknesses? What is their dream job when they graduate from high school? And because a lot of kids have different answers, or maybe they don't even know what they're going to do when they graduate from high school, we do these transitions every year because what one student may think he wants to do one year may change to the next. It just differs. And not only that, but when you start these transition conferences and transition assessments, a lot of the answers can be very, very vague. But by the time they get to ninth, 10th, 11th, and even 12th grade, the student is pretty sure what he wants to do when he graduates. So the transition assessments become more specific. Now you're probably wondering, wait a second, that's a new word, transition assessments. What are those? Well, transition assessments come in a variety of different ways. The first could be something similar to this, kind of like a checklist. Another one that I like to do is the student interview. And then, of course, there's the transition plan preparing for your future. This is typically what you might see when you get to high school or maybe right before you graduate. Transition assessments, you must administer a variety of different assessments to your transition age student each year. Assessments should address each area, education and training, employment, and/or independent living, where the student is anticipated to need help or services. And you cannot use the same transition assessment twice within a school year. So that means that if you have a annual case conference and you do a transition assessment and then you talk about that transition, that's fine. If you have a revision conference, you don't have to give a new transition. But the very next year, you have to use a different transition assessment. You can't use the same one 2 years in a row. So now you know what transitions are and how they apply to special education. Now, as I said, there's a lot that we can talk about in special ed. So what are we going to be talking about next week? Well, you'll just have to tune in to find out. So if you liked what you saw, you're new to the channel, or you learned something new, please click the like button. And if you want updates on future videos, feel free to click the subscribe button and ring the bell for updates on future videos. And as always, if you have questions about special education or you have comments that you would like to share, please drop a line in the comments section and I'd love to hear from you. And until next time, class dismissed.